Suzu Kanade is a lazy ass and she spends his all day in his room and is seen as a disappointment by her family. She visits a ranch to buy freshly made milk crepes. Since she is a broke bitch and doesn't have a lot of money, the ranch owner shows her a special man-made milk crepe, which gets her really excited. She also wants to buy the AUG version, so the owner offers her a special discount, making her very happy. While Suzu buys the crepes, a strange creature watches from the bushes, calling himself an Ayakashi. Ayakashi are invisible to humans and have a strong craving for human blood. To fight these creatures, there is a group called Exorcist ninjas. We see a red-headed ninja jumping onto a tree near a park. Suzu enjoys her crepe with as much delight as a starving child seeing food for the first time. As she enjoys her quiet time, the Ayakashi watches her from the tree, drooling at the sight of her. When the Ayakashi tries to attack, an exorcist ninja named Kazaki Matsuri grabs him. The Ayakashi, surprised to see someone from the legendary Kazamaki clan, and Ayakashi introduces himself as the great Shirogane, but Matsuri dismisses him, thinking he is insignificant. They start arguing, and Suzu, unaware of the danger, takes Shirogane from Matsuri. Despite Matsuri's warnings, she plays with Shirogane, but as she tries to leave, Matsuri runs fast as f*** to stop her. In his rush, he accidentally notices that Suzu's wear black armor down there, leading to an awkward situation. Matsuri, shocked, touches her thighs, but she quickly pushes him away with her knee. But our MC uses his ninja technique. He turns into a log to dodge, but still gets hit. She thanks him for caring but says she'll handle Shirogane alone. As she rides her bike away, she sees Ayakashi around her and talks with Shirogane, who asks about her connection with Matsuri. Suzu used to be a lonely girl who said she could see ghosts, but no one believed her. Everyone thought she is mad. Everything changed when Matsuri joined her. He could also see Ayakashi. They played with Ayakashi until Matsuri's attitude changed. Suzu, trusting her instincts, realized Matsuri had taken on his family's role of exorcising Ayakashi to protect people. As she speeds off on her bike with Shirogane, Matsuri battles a Spider-Man of this, who look like shit, but this Ayakashi with a human face that's causing chaos in the city traffic. The Kazamaki family, known for their wind techniques, shows off their best move to defeat the Ayakashi for good. Suzu heads to a shrine with Shirogane, ranting like a super intense Instagram post about how Matsuri keeps chasing away all the Ayakashi around her, even though they never hurt her. Shirogane gets that Matsuri knows the real danger. She pulls out another crepe and remembers their daily school fights, thinking how things are going to get spicy now that they're in high school. She drools over Matsuri, liking him more and more. Shirogane fumes, questioning why she likes the brat. He can't stand humans, thinking they get too close too soon. But he grins, determined not to let it happen. At the Kazamaki household, Matsuri's grandfather enjoys a bunny girl magazine while Matsuri gives him his report. Matsuri wonders why Suzu said he's changed, and his grandfather overhears him. Matsuri explains the situation, mentioning Shirogane's name. Hearing this, his grandfather's soul left his body, telling Matsuri that Suzu is in danger. Despite being a skilled Ayakashi hunter, Matsuri can't always see through their nature. The stronger the Ayakashi, the harder they are to detect. His grandfather explains that Shirogane is the god of Ayakashi but lacks confidence around women. Like you all brokies, lacks confidence around bitches. Meanwhile, Suzu continues to massage Shirogane, making a goofy face that makes him uncomfortable, like someone is stroking her. Shirogane understands the power of an Ayakashi medium and explains to Suzu that humans whose life energy seeps from their bodies can boost an Ayakashi's power. As Shirogane reveals his true, malicious form, Matsuri rushes to help Suzu. His grandfather comments on Suzu's unique ability as an Ayakashi medium, making her a magnet for powerful Ayakashi since they lack exorcism powers. Matsuri realizes the urgency and quickly moves to save Suzu. At the shrine, Suzu asks Shirogane if Matsuri knows about her situation and recalls the times Matsuri dropped everything to follow his family tradition. When Shirogane tries to attack Suzu, she calls Matsuri a dumbass for not telling her sooner. Matsuri arrives just in time to save her from Shirogane. Suzu asks how he knew where to find her, and Matsuri, using his charm, mentions all the time they've spent together. Suzu blushes, making Shirogane jealous since he has never experienced love. Matsuri uses his wind technique to lift himself up and pulls out his grandfather's scroll, which has the power to seal the Ayakashi king. As Matsuri activates the spell to seal Shirogane, Shirogane imagines how he and Suzu could have been together. Just before the scroll closes, Shirogane uses his ultimate technique, causing Matsuri to hesitate for a moment. Matsuri fails to capture Shirogane, who escapes in the confusion. After Shirogane escapes, Matsuri feels a sudden heaviness in his chest, and Suzu freaks out when she sees that Matsuri has transformed into very cute girl due to Shirogane's ultimate technique of gender changing. Suzu, feeling jealous of Matsuri's new melons are bigger than her, comment guys which has bigger melons. Shirogane, roaming the streets, admits that most of his powers are now sealed, but he doesn't worry about Matsuri anymore since he has turned him into a girl. He vows to return stronger. Back at the Kazamaki household, Matsuri's grandfather despairs, unsure how to reverse the gender change. Matsuri looks in the mirror and touching her plot like 50-year-old virgin. Just as Suzu arrives, noticing that Matsuri's chest is now bigger than hers. Matsuri's grandfather tells him to accept that he's no longer a man, marking the start of Matsuri's odd new life as a girl, navigating this change with his girlfriend, Suzu. The next morning, Suzu arrives at the Kazamaki household to help Matsuri manage her two big guns, and she don't know how wear plot armor on his guns. Matsuri's grandfather sits outside, quietly drinking tea, and wondering why Suzu hasn't visited in so long. As Suzu and Matsuri prepare to leave, the grandfather looks through the open windows, marveling at how the boy Suzu liked has become such a pretty girl. Matsuri's grandfather advises him to keep an eye on Suzu, as she might be targeted by another Ayakashi. Thanks to his grandfather's contact with the principal, Matsuri is now allowed to return to school as a girl. They leave for school, starting what seems to be a typical day for the girls. Suzu wonders how Matsuri has adapted to his new body so quickly. She tells him to stop playing around with his new assets. When Matsuri jokingly asks what she would do if she turned into a boy, Suzu grins mischievously and blushes, saying she wouldn't inspect herself, though her expression says otherwise. As they walk, they discuss their plan to catch Shirogane and reverse the gender change. Suzu spots an Ayakashi and tries to tame it, but Matsuri distracts her with her favorite crepe, reminding her to stay focused. They continue downhill, and at the bus stop, Suzu sits in the front while Matsuri goes to the back for some privacy. Suzu wonders why he is sitting alone and sees him playing a game on his smartphone, realizing they've grown a bit distant since he started his training. Matsuri silently plays a game on his smartphone, and Suzu stops herself from asking for his number. When they finally reach the school, Matsuri and Suzu end up in the same class, thanks to his grandfather's connections. The whole class goes wild over Matsuri's arrival as a girl, not knowing the truth. Suzu's friends, Yaoi and Lucy, are particularly impressed with Matsuri's legs, with Yaoi even jokingly licking them. If you know guys what this bitch means. Matsuri watches, thinking it's not his problem, until Lucy notices and gets excited to see him in action. Lucy and Yaoi ask Suzu to introduce them to Matsuri, but he runs away, with Suzu following him. Suzu races down the hallway, but a grumpy old teacher scolds her for running as class is about to start. Ignoring him, she keeps going. On the school grounds, Matsuri faces Shirogane, who has come to retrieve the sealing scroll that took his powers. Shirogane offers to reverse the gender spell if Matsuri hands over the scroll. Shirogane tries to tempt Matsuri, asking if he wants to return to being a boy. Matsuri refuses, concerned for Suzu's safety. Shirogane, acting smug, mentions the sealing tower on Mount Jabhai, where a powerful Ayakashi once caused havoc before being sealed away. He attempts to release the Ayakashi, but to his embarrassment, nothing happens, and the Ayakashi remains sealed. Suddenly, Suzu screams from somewhere nearby, and Matsuri and Shirogane rush to her location. They find a giant, grotesque Ayakashi about to devour Suzu. Matsuri jumps in to save her, ending up in a somewhat compromising position that looks almost steamy. Using his wind technique, Matsuri quickly destroys the Ayakashi, shattering it into pieces. Shirogane is shocked at how Matsuri managed to defeat the creature in a single blow. Matsuri sits with his legs wide open, and Suzu thinks that even as a girl, he's super cool. Matsuri apologizes for being naive and asks Suzu to introduce him to her friends, the enthusiastic Yaoi and Lucy. The girls introduce themselves to Matsuri, drooling over him as they see a tomboy with a well-endowed chest. Suzu recalls how Matsuri always wants to protect her, even if it means befriending her friends, reminding her that he's still a boy at heart. On the bus ride home, Suzu finally exchanges numbers with him. Shirogane watches them from a distance, plotting his next move like a tactical gamer. When Matsuri gets home, he asks his grandfather about his past with Shirogane. His grandfather reveals that he fought Shirogane for a decade, but Shirogane grew too powerful and withdrew from human interaction. No one expected that Shirogane's next target would be Suzu. Realizing her immense life force, or Haku, makes her a prime target. The next day, Matsuri explains to Suzu about her Haku and how it attracts Ayakashi like Shirogane. Suzu thinks of herself as a sweet girl whom everyone wants to protect, but Matsuri gives her a reality check. Feeling the need to use the bathroom, Matsuri instinctively enters the men's restroom. The boys inside talk about how women are irrational, and Matsuri tries to use a urinal until the grumpy old teacher kicks him out. Suzu, standing with Yaoi and Lucy, laughs at the situation, while Shirogane continues to observe them from a distance, waiting for the right moment to strike. At home, Matsuri deals with the discomfort of experiencing a menstrual cycle for the first time. His grandfather heads out to visit neighbors, leaving Matsuri to take a bath. While pondering the challenges of being in a female body, he also finds a bit of humor in his new appearance. Suddenly, Suzu knocks on the window, expressing her concern that Shirogane might return to steal the scroll. As Matsuri tries to calm her down, but surprise surprise mother flipper, she is Shirogane, disguised as Suzu, sneaks in and grabs the scroll. Thinking he has finally broken free, Shirogane is surprised when Matsuri goes quickly to catch him, revealing her body, and she uses her transformation ninja technique. After that, she uses a powerful wind technique. Matsuri drives Shirogane away. Later, Suzu, while getting a massage at home, thinks about the day's intense moments and her growing feelings for Matsuri. She runs outside upon seeing Shirogane tied up by Matsuri and begs him not to exorcise Shirogane, fearing it will prevent Matsuri from ever returning to his original form. Matsuri is torn but feels compelled to fulfill his duty, even if it means remaining a girl forever. Suzu's affection for him becomes clear as she stops his hand just in time. Realizing her feelings, Matsuri decides to keep Shirogane as a pet instead of exorcising him, unable to let the powerful Ayakashi run free. Back home, Suzu munches on a peculiar-looking snack and thinks about how to repay Matsuri for saving her twice. Knowing that Shirogane is attracted to her sweet life force, she decides to create an even sweeter treat. That night, she makes white cream balls and feels a sense of accomplishment, hoping this will deter Shirogane. Morning dawns, and Matsuri is sprawled out in bed with the sealing scroll clutched tightly in his arms. Shirogane spots an opportunity and attempts to snatch the scroll, but Matsuri is in sleeps. She grips between her two guns tightly. As Matsuri awakens, he singes Shirogane slightly with a burst of flame. Matsuri gets a text from Suzu asking how life with Shirogane is going. While trying to respond, Shirogane nosily tries to read over his shoulder and Matsuri says shut the f*** up. After a lazy day, Shirogane encounters Matsuri's grandfather, Kazamaki Seijin, and I know guys what you are thinking. This is a pervy old man who spends his days indulging in games and reading some adult comics. Shirogane finds it peculiar that Matsuri, now his grandfather's successor, would keep the Ayakashi king as a pet, feeling a mix of confusion and begrudging admiration. Matsuri enters the scene, explaining that he had to keep Shirogane around because Suzu intervened during the exorcism attempt. Shirogane comments on how Matsuri's new feminine traits seem to have overshadowed his former masculinity, which irks Matsuri. Despite his frustration, Matsuri keeps his cool and offers Shirogane some food he prepared, hoping to maintain a truce. Shirogane contemplates how Matsuri can be likable, but his opinion sours upon seeing the unappetizing leftovers he's offered. They start arguing until Suzu shows up with her homemade cream balls, which she calls Suzu Dango. Shirogane scoffs at the idea of being tamed by sweets, but once he takes a bite, he's unexpectedly transported into a state of bliss, as if the dango took him to another dimension. Matsuri then gets a text from Suzu suggesting that befriending Shirogane might help ease the tension. He internally disagrees. His grandfather, Seijin, comments on how strong Suzu is for not fearing the Ayakashi that once tried to attack her. Seijin praises Suzu's courage, noting that it's no surprise Matsuri has always looked up to her. Matsuri tries to downplay the compliment, but his grandfather reminisces about Matsuri's childhood fear of Ayakashi and how he would always come to his aid. Seijin recounts a particular incident where young Matsuri ran into the woods to escape an Ayakashi, only to trip and fall, facing the creature's threat. However, Suzu saved the day by calling back the Ayakashi, and Matsuri saw all types of Ayakashi gathering around her as she assured him it was safe. This generic backstory is one of the reasons why Matsuri would stay as a girl to protect someone he cares about. As Matsuri discusses this with Seijin, they hear a noise at the door. Matsuri swiftly pulls out shuriken from his bag, ready to throw them, but finds only a feather at the door. Seijin recognizes it as belonging to an Ayakashi, possibly one that serves their enemies. He hopes it won't cause any trouble. Meanwhile, far away, an exorcist ninja battles an Ayakashi with a bird companion. The bird warns its owner about facing the Kazamaki family. The Exorcist, named Zero, defeats the Ayakashi and plans to remove Matsuri from his path. At school, the girls check out club announcements, but Matsuri can't join any due to his responsibilities at home. Yayoi teases him, suggesting he become a secretary or a pin-up model for a magazine, while Zero watches them from a distance. 6 months ago, Matsuri was assigned a mission with Zero. They ventured into the jungle under Seijen's orders to aid the lightning-fast clan called Nuru. Matsuri was eager to work with Zero, but the other exorcists treated him like a rookie, threatening to abandon him if he made a mistake. They underestimated him, as Matsuri cleared the entire area before they even grasped the situation. Though rivals, Zero becomes jealous seeing Matsuri getting all the attention from the girls, who gush over him. The exorcist known as Sauga moves away as his bird companion, Ayakashi, alerts him to another Ayakashi in the school courtyard. Sauga walks through the hallway, where people mistake him for a young thug, though he's genuinely humble. He reaches the courtyard and sees Shirogane lying on a bench, grooming himself, unaware that Sauga can see him. Matsuri, walking with Suzu, massages his chest, feeling sore from Yayoi's teasing earlier. He hears and sees Sauga with Shirogane. As Sauga tries to exorcise Shirogane, the Ayakashi flees and Sauga gives chase. Matsuri follows, remembering the mission he undertook with Sauga, where they were attacked by powerful Hercules like Ayakashi but managed to survive. Sauga was less impressed by Matsuri's strength than by his conviction in fighting the Ayakashi. However, since Matsuri's transformation into a busty woman, he feels he's lost Sauga's respect. Using his choker, Sauga transforms into his exorcist uniform and speeds away. Matsuri worries that Sauga might actually kill Shirogane, which would eliminate the threat to Suzu, but he decides to intervene and stop Sauga. On the other hand, Suzu hopes that Matsuri will bring Shirogane back alive, unaware that he has halted his pursuit. Shirogane continues to run through the woods until Sauga catches up and attempts to attack him. Shirogane dodges, but just as Sauga moves in for a final strike, Matsuri arrives in a dramatic display, using a signboard to fly. His unconventional choice of panties catches everyone's attention as he swoops in and rescues Shirogane for Suzu's sake. Matsuri tells Sauga about Suzu being an Ayakashi medium. In response, Sauga throws a kunai, which instead lifts Matsuri's skirt, revealing his panties. Sauga blushes bright red and flees, terrified of women. Matsuri then returns to school with Shirogane to meet Suzu. She gratefully thanks Matsuri, who has lived up to her expectations, and promises to be a good friend to Shirogane. Matsuri sees a reflection of Suzu's old self in her and feels happy that some things haven't changed. The next day, Suzu and Matsuri wait for the bus while Matsuri warns her about Sauga, who might kill Shirogane if he causes any trouble. Suzu insists she will order Shirogane to behave and become her obedient servant so he won't attract Sauga's attention. However, being the king of Ayakashi, Shirogane is bound to act mischievously. As they continue to wait, Sauga watches them from the bushes, stealthy like a spy from another sky. He realizes that the purple-haired girl is Suzu, the Ayakashi medium. At school, Yayoi shows the girls a furry-themed show, making them all fangirl. Matsuri stands to the side, uninterested. Yayoi tries to show the furry show to Matsuri but slips and grabs onto Matsuri's chest, accidentally revealing her bra. Lucy quickly snaps a photo. Matsuri, feeling uncomfortable, moves away, stating that he hates being touched, even by friends. Yayoi whines, thinking Matsuri now dislikes her, but Suzu steps in to cheer her up. A few moments later, Suzu meets Matsuri on the rooftop and asks him to be a bit friendlier with Yayoi. Matsuri replies that he tries to be nice but struggles to find topics to talk about with girls since he and Sauga have the same problem with women. Suzu gets frustrated and asks what he talks about with his guy friends, but Matsuri admits that he didn't have any because he was considered a loser. Since the beginning, Matsuri has spent all his time idolizing Suzu, which is why he never made male friends. He even became her boyfriend to keep a close eye on the Ayakashi. However, when he looks back and sees Suzu showing signs of disappointment, he decides to make an effort for her sake. Yayoi excitedly calls them over to see Shirogane, who appears as a white cat to them. Suzu and Matsuri feel a bit down seeing how affectionate the girls are with the Ayakashi king. When Yayoi asks Matsuri to pet Shirogane, he moves away, causing her to cry like a baby again. Suzu explains to Yayoi that Matsuri is more of a dog person. Later, Suzu and Matsuri talk with Shirogane outside. Shirogane explains that he has taken on a cute form to deceive humans, showing that he has lost his pride as the king of Ayakashi. Before leaving, Shirogane warns Matsuri that Yayoi is possessed by an Ayakashi. At school, Yayoi continues to fall repeatedly, asking Lucy if the way she touched Matsuri was wrong. Lucy agrees, and Yaoi decides to apologize to Matsuri. Hearing about the Ayakashi that is haunting Yaoi, Matsuri uses his snip-snap wind 100 technique to lure it out. They discover the Ayakashi hiding on the surface, causing Yaoi to slip every time. The Ayakashi reveals itself, and Yaoi slips on the stairs, but Matsuri saves her with his wind technique. Matsuri then apologizes to Yaoi for being cold towards her, acknowledging their friendship. Suzu scolds the Ayakashi, telling it not to cause any more problems. After school, the girls gather in a classroom to chat and create a group called Catch If He Gets It. Meanwhile, outside the classroom, the grumpy old teacher plays with Shirogane. Suzu and Matsuri head home to perform a ritual called the Norm Ritual, which involves sending harmful aakashi back to the mountains to protect humans. And Seijin explains to Suzu that not all aakashi are bad. The ritual is used to send away the harmless aakashi, while more dangerous ones like Shirogane aren't killed but dealt with differently. Suzu feels jealous because Matsuri keeps his distance from her to protect her from the aakashi life. The next day at school, Yaoi's favorite show ends with a dramatic romance scene, but Matsuri thinks such things should wait until after marriage. As they leave the room, Saoga's pet, Kashi, greets Matsuri and asks him to meet Saoga in the courtyard. Matsuri goes to the courtyard dressed in his exorcist clothes and meets Saoga, who tells him about an encounter with a wandering aakashi. The aakashi reveals a secret that aakashi mediums are part human and part aakashi. This revelation shocks Matsuri, especially when he realizes that Suzu is an aakashi medium, making her a target for other ninjas' exorcisms. Matsuri struggles to accept this and tries to attack, but Saoga reassures him there's still hope. Matsuri insists that there's no way Suzu will be harmed, but when he gets too close to Saoga, he becomes embarrassed and runs away, scared of the situation. After school, Suzu tries to cheer up Matsuri, who has been feeling down since meeting Saoga. They hear Shirogane outside the classroom, and when they check, they see the grumpy old man following Shirogane for cuddles. In an attempt to help Matsuri feel better, Suzu makes another batch of her Suzu Dango, the only thing she feels she can do to support him as he tries to return to his original body. However, she feels disheartened when Matsuri doesn't share his thoughts with her. Feeling down, Suzu ends up eating all the Dango herself. When her mother comes to try some, she finds none left. Suzu goes to her room to sleep but can't stop thinking about how, in romance dramas, the protagonist often returns to their original form after being kissed by their lover. She drifts off to sleep with this thought in mind. Meanwhile, Shirogane enjoys his stray cat life on the rooftops. Seijin watches his favorite idol videos and suddenly senses a presence in another room. Matsuri, unable to focus on anything since Saoga revealed Suzu's true identity, struggles to accept it. He reminisces about the moments he shared with Suzu during their childhood, feeling conflicted about the revelation and its implications for their relationship. Suzu suddenly enters Matsuri's room and wakes him up. Matsuri flutters, seeing a woman this close to him for the first time. Suddenly, Suzu leans in for a kiss as Shirogane watches them, realizing his gender-bending technique has backfired. It was meant to stop their romance, but now fuels it instead. They continue with a passionate kiss, and Matsuri feels overwhelmed by Suzu's soft lips. After enjoying it for a moment, he pushes Suzu away, only to find the room empty. Meanwhile, Suzu wakes up from her sleep, feeling a bit strange on her lips. Matsuri calls her, explaining that someone who looked just like her entered his room. As Suzu talks to him on the phone, Matsuri asks Seijin about the situation. Seijin explains that stress can cause a person's haku to leak, creating a doppelganger known as an amakage. These amakage wander around without free will. Learning about this, Suzu asks if the amakage did anything weird to him. Both of them fall into a state of confusion, unable to comprehend that they had actually kissed. The experience leaves them both bewildered and unable to distinguish between reality and the actions of the amakage. Suddenly, Suzu experiences a sharp headache. When Seijin hears about it, he realizes that Suzu and her amakage might be sharing the same sensations. The pain or pleasure felt by the amakage could be transmitted to Suzu. Matsuri rushes out, asking Seijin to keep him updated with everything Suzu says through their communication device. Matsuri inquires about Suzu's current feelings. She describes it as if she is walking barefoot on rough terrain. Seijin explains that due to Suzu's high energy levels, the amakage will persist for an extended period. Matsuri heads to Suzu's usual shrine but finds it empty. Instead, he encounters Shirogane, who offers to help locate Suzu's amakage, driven by his own interests. Using his sharp sense of smell, Shirogane leads Matsuri to a small wooden figure. They start bickering, with Matsuri calling Shirogane useless until Seijin contacts them with new information from Suzu. She now feels like she's walking on grass and can smell cows. Matsuri quickly figures out that she must be near the dairy farm where she gets her favorite milk crepes. Suzu suddenly feels sharp pain in her fingers as the amakage attempts to lift a heavy shutter. Despite their power, amakage can't endure such pain when sharing sensations with their host. Seijin warns Matsuri that Suzu's fingers might break, affecting her permanently. Spotting the amakage, Matsuri uses his wind technique to launch Shirogane towards it. He then transforms into a tempting crepe. When the amakage tries to eat it, it disappears. Matsuri and Shirogane return to Suzu, who explains that she had been craving milk crepes before falling asleep, leading the amakage to try and fulfill her desire. After she wakes up, Suzu thanks Shirogane, but he dismisses it, saying he only did it for the dango. Matsuri then asks if she had any other thoughts before falling asleep, and both turn red, knowing what actually happened during the night. The next day at school, Sauga receives information from his Ayakashi about Suzu's amakage. Maintaining his usual demeanor, he notices some girls who approach but quickly flee upon seeing his fearsome appearance. Just then, Suzu arrives with a bright smile, hinting that she might have a plan. Suzu surprises Sauga by asking him to go out with her. Sauga is taken aback, unable to believe a girl would ask him out. His Ayakashi companion looks on in disbelief and joy, witnessing his master potentially experiencing a romantic moment for the first time. Suzu and Matsuri walk together as she explains her plan to strengthen his bond with Shirogane. Matsuri disagrees, and Suzu blushes, admitting she doesn't want to be a burden anymore, which makes Matsuri unable to meet her gaze. Suzu decides to take him along to monitor the situation, but she meets with Sauga alone, making Matsuri even more anxious. Suzu, full of energy, takes Sauga to her parents' cafe. Her parents, seeing her with Sauga, start to believe that their daughter can actually attract a guy. Matsuri watches from afar, wondering what they are discussing, and feeling a twinge of jealousy seeing Suzu with Sauga. When Shirogane asks about his feelings, Matsuri denies being jealous. Shirogane decides to have some fun and helps Matsuri eavesdrop on their conversation. Suzu confidently chats with Sauga while Sauga's fear of women intensifies. He thinks that battling Ayakashi is far easier than dealing with this situation. Unsure of what to say, Sauga starts talking about the history of Exorcist ninjas. Suzu thanks him, mentioning how Matsuri never shares such stories with her, which takes Sauga by surprise. Out of nowhere, Matsuri enters the cafe in a disguise, trying to overhear their conversation without being noticed. However, Suzu sees through Matsuri's disguise when he struggles to order from the menu, clearly unfamiliar with the dishes. She wonders what his true intentions are. Sauga, initially wary of Suzu because of her powerful Ayakashi medium abilities, snaps back to reality and notices Pansuk in her arms. Matsuri feels a stab of jealousy, thinking Suzu is enjoying herself without him. Sauga, seeing Pansuk in Suzu's hands, recalls the time he saved Pansuk. Initially, Sauga didn't want Pansuk as his pet because his appearance scared people, but Pansuk didn't care, and they became close friends. Suzu, understanding the unique bond Sauga has with Pansuk due to her Ayakashi medium abilities, touches Sauga's heart. Meanwhile, Matsuri is still confused about his feelings, and Shirogane continues to tease him. After their encounter, Suzu and Matsuri say goodbye to Sauga and walk away. Suzu explains to Matsuri that Sauga told her many things about Exorcist ninjas, but clammed up when he saw Matsuri, as if silenced by an invisible force. Despite everything, Suzu is happy Matsuri entered the cafe because it shows he cares for her. They walk home together, feeling a newfound closeness. Across the road, Sauga and Pansuk both realize they have developed feelings for Suzu. She made Sauga feel special, despite being someone he initially thought of as a threat. At school, Lucy gets excited when she finds out that Matsuri shares her love for her favorite game manga series. She proudly flaunts her entire collection, and Yaoi announces that it's gym class today. As soon as Matsuri hears this, he tries to bolt, but Yaoi catches him and insists he must come along. The group heads to the changing rooms, and Matsuri surprisingly remains calm around the girls. Suzu watches him interact effortlessly with Lucy and Yaoi, and she becomes concerned that he might exploit his current form to spy on the other girls in the locker room. Determined to prevent any potential mischief, Suzu imagines herself protecting the girls' privacy, even contemplating drastic measures to deter Matsuri. Shirogane, picking up on Suzu's thoughts, realizes her worries stem from her spiritual power. He remains intent on stealing the God-sealing scroll to regain his original form and consume Suzu. Knowing where Matsuri keeps the scroll, He waits for the perfect opportunity to strike. As they enter the locker room, Matsuri quickly changes at an incredible speed, leaving no time for any mishaps. He exits before any of the girls start changing. Suzu sighs in relief, realizing Matsuri had a plan all along to avoid any embarrassing situations. Still, she feels a bit uneasy about her earlier thoughts. Just then, Lucy asks Suzu if she noticed Matsuri's impressive abs, causing Suzu to worry that Lucy might have discovered the truth about his gender transformation. However, Lucy simply wanted to snap a picture and accidentally caught a glimpse of the God sealing scroll on Matsuri's back. When they reach the field, Matsuri explains that his family has a lineage of ninjas, which is why he possesses the scroll. Even if Matsuri revealed the truth, no one would believe him. Suzu knows from experience how people can be cruel, just like when she tried to tell them about Ayakashi and faced ridicule. As Matsuri runs around the track, his movements drawing attention, he notices Suzu looking troubled. Deciding to keep pace with the three girls, he suddenly speeds up to challenge them. As he passes a group of boys, they can't help but stare at his chest. The girls quickly catch up and warn the boys that such behavior could get them into serious trouble, causing the boys to disperse quickly. Seeing Suzu again, Matsuri realizes how much it bothers her that they can't share their secrets with their friends. While he knows it's for the best since ordinary people can't see Ayakashi, a part of him wishes that Yaoi and Lucy could see them too. As the sun sets, students are having fun with Shirogane, who they mockingly call the useless god. After they leave, Suzu and Matsuri approach Shirogane. Matsuri advises him to abandon his so-called godhood and embrace the life of a stray cat. Suddenly, Matsuri's Exorcist app alerts him to an Ayakashi nearby. Right then, Lucy and Yaoi show up, presenting a photo of the grumpy old man, but with eerie black figures in the background. Matsuri and Suzu immediately recognize these as dangerous Ayakashi. Shirogane identifies the figures as icon, manifestations of human negative emotions. Lucy's camera has unintentionally captured their presence. Suzu tries to persuade Lucy to dispose of the photo, but Lucy sees it as a way to gain her parents' attention. While they joke around, Matsuri notices the icon spreading across Lucy's body, draining her Haku. He realizes he needs to act quickly to save her. Matsuri and Suzu, thinking fast, convince Lucy to show them her manga collection. Lucy, seizing the moment, invites everyone to her house for a bath, shocking them all. The next, they can't believe they are actually going to bathe with Matsuri. Lucy arrives in a massive limousine, surprising Suzu and Matsuri. At Lucy's mansion, she reveals her indoor hot springs. The girls begin to undress, which overwhelms Matsuri. He tries to excuse himself, saying he'll bathe later, but Suzu insists he stay close by in case anything happens. Yaoi and Lucy insist he joins them, believing it will strengthen their bond. They help him undress, and they all get into the bath together. Matsuri keeps the scroll balanced on his head for safekeeping. Lucy attempts to take it, hoping to rattle him. In the process, Matsuri accidentally sees Lucy and Yaoi's bodies, though they are partially covered by the icon. Before he can react, Suzu splashes him playfully, making him feel even more uncomfortable. He quickly exits the bath, unsettled by the situation. Shirogane, feeling awkward as well, misses his chance to steal the scroll. Suddenly, Lucy collapses as the icon drains her life energy. Matsuri urges her to get up and rest, but she falls unconscious. She dreams of being in a library, showing her manga collection to Matsuri. However, the icon emerges from a picture on her phone. Worried, everyone watches over Lucy as she lies in bed. When Yaoi steps out to get a drink, Matsuri uses his pinwheel and wind magic to enter Lucy's dream. In her dream, Matsuri appears in his original male form, making Lucy fail to recognize him. He fights the icon, ultimately defeating it. He then uses his pinwheel to extract the icon from the dream into the real world, eliminating its threat. After completing his mission, Matsuri exits the dream. The next morning, Lucy wakes up, and everyone is thrilled to see her back to normal. She mentions a boy who saved her in her dream, making Matsuri happy to know he's still himself on the inside. When Lucy checks her phone, the icon is gone from the photo. Lucy, excited, shows Matsuri pictures of him in his female form, making him uncomfortable. He asks her to delete them, but she sends them to their group chat, adding to Matsuri's embarrassment. When they sit in the limo, Matsuri makes a grumpy face, resembling a pouty girl. A Kappa Ayakashi approaches a blonde painter, telling him about Matsuri, and the Ayakashi medium, Suzu. The painter sketches the Kappa, and in exchange for the information, he gives the Kappa a sketch of himself. However, the Kappa tears the sketch apart and demands to know the artist's identity. The blonde man reveals himself as Utagawa Garaku, a wandering artist fascinated by Ayakashi. The next day, Sauga calls Matsuri to meet him outside the school. When Matsuri arrives, Sauga warns him to keep quiet about Suzu and the Ayakashi medium. Sauga then admits he has fallen in love with Suzu, leaving Matsuri initially confused. Sauga asks Matsuri how he feels about it. Matsuri tries to brush it off, saying he's fine and doesn't have feelings for Suzu despite their long history. But his blushing and hesitant expression betray his true feelings. Meanwhile, Suzu is playing with Shirogane on a bench when Matsuri brings Sauga over for his confession. Sauga tries to confess his love but fumbles, ending up saying he'll protect Matsuri instead. Embarrassed, he runs off, making Suzu think Sauga sees Matsuri as a rival for her affection. Suzu continues teasing Shirogane, giving him a dango as a reward, when both she and Matsuri sense a powerful Ayakashi nearby. It turns out to be Utagawa Garaku, who is talking with the kappa on a bridge. Suzu and Matsuri rush inside the school, sensing the powerful aura of the Ayakashi. They encounter the principal and the grumpy teacher, who are welcoming Garaku there for artistic references. Suzu and Matsuri quickly realize that Garaku is the Ayakashi. Their teachers introduce them to Garaku, who starts taking notes about them, claiming he's gathering material for a story. Matsuri is bewildered by the intense energy radiating from Garaku. As the girls show Garaku around the school, he expresses his delight at being surrounded by youthful energy. As they continue to walk with Garaku around the school, Suzu breaks the ice by asking if he's an Ayakashi. Garaku, intrigued, replies that they are indeed curious and mentions that he knows Matsuri is an Ayakashi medium. Matsuri becomes defensive, prompting Garaku to lie down and sketch them from top to bottom. Garaku reveals that he knows everything about them, including the gender-bending spell cast on Matsuri by Shirogane. He asks where Shirogane is, noting that he expected Shirogane to be with them. Garaku explains that when he entered the school, Shirogane sensed someone he disliked and quickly left. This saddens Garaku, as he agrees with Shirogane's position as king. Suddenly, Garaku pulls out his favorite brush and spreads ink all over, demanding that Matsuri hand over the god sealing scroll. He draws tentacles on the floor that begin to strip Matsuri, searching for the scroll, even if it means looking inside her clothing. As the tentacles invade, Sauga arrives and cuts them down, giving Matsuri a chance to change into his exorcist gear. Garaku, knowing Sauga's family history from the Ayakashi grapevine, reveals extensive information as if he had been watching them for a long time. Meanwhile, Sauga is well aware of Garaku's reputation. Garaku is a distinguished Ayakashi who has lived among humans and has been creating art since the Edo period. Previously, he hadn't posed a threat to humans, and the hunters kept a watchful eye on him. However, things have now changed. Sauga attacks Garaku with incredible speed, but Garaku creates a decoy at the last moment, ensnaring Sauga in chains made from his artwork. Hearing Yaoi and Lucy approaching, Garaku quickly constructs an illusionary wall, causing the girls to become disoriented and unable to see clearly. Garaku boasts about his abilities, but Matsuri has had enough and attempts to attack him. However, Garaku's speed outmatches her, and he launches an assault, summoning various rabbits and frogs that latch onto her, trying to take the scroll. Matsuri struggles as the creatures try to make off with the scroll. When she attempts to escape, an octopus suddenly seizes her, making things even more complicated. Feeling helpless, Matsuri shouts in frustration. At that moment, Suzu emits a bright light, stopping the octopus in its tracks. The octopus then turns against Garaku, attacking his creator. Suzu, having hijacked Garaku's spell, impresses him. When he demands to see more of her abilities, Matsuri uses a wind spell to spread water from a faucet, washing away Garaku's art. Garaku is shocked to see Matsuri dispel his attack so effectively. As Matsuri prepares to finish him off, Garaku bows, leaving her puzzled. Suzu steps in, urging Matsuri to stop, noting that Garaku hadn't directly harmed them. She questions Garaku about Ayakashi mediums. Garaku explains that Suzu has the potential to dethrone the current ineffective god and become a ruler herself, due to her powerful medium abilities. Both Matsuri and Suzu are left stunned by this information. As they head home, Matsuri questions Seijin about Garaku, wondering why such a powerful Ayakashi would make an appearance. They agree to keep a close watch on him, but Seijin has an important meeting the next day and must inform Suzu. Matsuri decides to visit Suzu's house and encounters her younger brother, who has just hit puberty and can't help but stare at Matsuri's prominent features. When Suzu invites Matsuri into her room, it's his first time seeing a girl's room. He notices a photo of the two of them together. Suddenly, Garaku makes a dramatic entrance, searching for Shirogane. Everyone is shocked as Garaku draws a door on the wall, steps through it, and takes Shirogane away to catch up on some lore. Left alone, Matsuri and Suzu feel shy. Suzu brings up what Garaku said about her potential to become an Ayakashi god. He mentions she has enough energy to heal Ayakashi worldwide, and people like her were once revered as gods. Matsuri advises her to be cautious with her powers and learn how to channel her energy effectively to the Ayakashi. She managed to do it with the octopus, but Matsuri thinks it was just luck. Suddenly, Suzu picks up a pillow and briefly transforms into an Ayakashi, causing them to fall onto the bed together. The transformation quickly dissipates, leaving them both blushing and surprised. Suddenly, Suzu remembers Garaku telling her that she could dispel Ayakashi curses. She quickly undresses Matsuri, hoping to remove his gender-bend curse, but her hopes are shattered when nothing changes. However, Matsuri still feels her power. As they get closer, Garaku spies on them from outside, and Suzu's brother enters the room, prompting them to separate quickly. The brother's stunned reaction amuses Garaku, who sketches the scene. Garaku feels pleased with his decision to return. Outside the bedroom, Garaku and Shirogane observe the events unfold. Garaku tells Shirogane how impressed he is with Suzu's abilities, suggesting that she might be closer to Ayakashi than to humans. He warns Shirogane that if Suzu can't control her powers, another amakage might spawn. Shirogane responds, saying it has already happened. Garaku urges Shirogane to tell the kids his objective and team up with them, but Shirogane refuses, stating he will never collaborate with humans. Meanwhile, Matsuri, reflecting on what happened with Suzu, is seen playing Candy Crush on his phone. Shirogane barges in and informs Matsuri that another amakage has spawned, and it's a dangerous one. We then cut to a sinister-looking icon chasing an Ayakashi through a forest. Matsuri and Shirogane are watching from a hidden spot. Matsuri mentions to Shirogane that he needs to stop the icon before it evolves to its next phase. Matsuri jokingly says Shirogane should have stayed home playing video games with Gramps, adding that there's no chance for him to steal the scroll during this mission. Matsuri leaps into action, starting his transformation. His outfit is nearly torn to shreds in the process. Shirogane mocks him, calling him a shameless ninja. Matsuri, surprised by his tattered clothes, readies himself for battle. Despite the wardrobe mishap, Matsuri quickly gains the upper hand against the icon, showcasing his power and agility. We then cut to Matsuri discussing with Sauga the damage his ninja gear sustained in the fight against the icon. Matsuri warns Sauga to be cautious, saying he might end up like him if he's not careful. Matsuri mentions he will visit Kogi to get his gear repaired. Sauga, feeling down about his defeat by Garaku, explains that he needs to stay and train. Matsuri reassures him that they will both become stronger and avoid such setbacks in the future. Sauga blushes at the encouragement, momentarily forgetting Matsuri's true gender. Sauga reminds Matsuri to stay battle-ready even without his gear because the city is in a volatile state. Meanwhile, Suzu struggles to use her Haku to make a paper crane fly but fails repeatedly. Garaku, in his usual critical manner, points out her mistakes and offers advice on how to improve. Suzu, confused but determined, listens as Garaku explains that with enough practice, she might even reverse Shirogane's spell. Shirogane, however, remains skeptical and wary of Garaku's intentions. Matsuri finds Suzu and is surprised to see Garaku with her. After Garaku leaves, Matsuri cautions Suzu against interacting with Garaku alone, suspecting ulterior motives. Matsuri and Suzu head to Kogi, and Suzu is surprised to find it appears to be a toy store. Matsuri explains that the store conceals genuine Exorcist ninja tools among the toys, protected by a spell that prevents ordinary people from recognizing them. Inside the store, Shirogane encounters a glue trap and complains about potentially losing his fur, only to be startled by a night figure that takes him hostage and ejects him from the shop. Matsuri and Suzu exit and are shocked to see numerous icons wreaking havoc in the city. They hear a voice behind them and see a pink-haired girl on rollerblades chasing Shirogane. She catches up to the icon and seals it with her special tool. Matsuri informs Suzu that the girl is the heir to the Kogi clan, known for their craftsmanship and exorcist ninja skills. He introduces her as Kogi Rio. Rio approaches Matsuri and informs him that the icon she captured earlier has escaped and she wants to investigate it further. Rio asks about the girl with him, and Matsuri introduces Suzu as his childhood friend, though their relationship is clearly deeper than that. The icon breaks free from its weak seal, but Matsuri quickly deals with it. Impressed by his display of strength, Rio jumps on him with excitement, letting out a delighted squeal. While on top of him, Rio remarks that she's not surprised by his abilities since Matsuri was her first. Suzu is left speechless by this revelation. Later, we see Matsuri training with a wooden dummy in a dojo to provide Rio with physical data. Suzu and Rio watch his fight, and Rio gets overly enthusiastic for the wrong reasons ever since Matsuri's transformation. Rio is thrilled with the data she's collecting from Matsuri, while Suzu starts feeling insecure about Rio's closeness to Matsuri. She asks Rio how long she's known Matsuri. Rio provides the exact date they met, reminiscing about the time Matsuri said he would visit whenever he needed new ninja gear. Rio was thrilled by his acknowledgement of her skills and felt happy to support Matsuri in any way she could. Just as Matsuri is about to stop fighting the dummy, it starts tickling him, revealing an Ayakashi inside. It turns out Shirogane was attempting to steal the scroll using the wooden dummy. Matsuri hesitates to go all out to avoid breaking the dummy, but Rio reassures him and gives him permission to destroy it. Matsuri escapes by performing a swift move on the dummy, impressing Suzu with a glimpse into his world. If not for Shirogane's interference, Suzu would have never seen this side of Matsuri. Suzu tries on Rio's Exorcist ninja gear and nearly ends up completely exposed. She screams for help, demanding to be returned to normal. Later, we see Matsuri alone, reflecting on the recent events. He recalls Rio explaining how an Ayakashi had interfered with his ninja gear during his transformation. This leads Matsuri to wonder if Suzu could have the potential to become an Ayakashi god and possibly reverse Shirogane's spell on him. The thought that Suzu might possess such power fills Matsuri with a renewed sense of hope and determination to better understand their abilities and the connection they share. Shirogane sits on the temple roof, contemplating the rising number of icons and wondering if their presence is somehow linked to him. The scene transitions from a wide view of Earth down to a blonde girl who is heading to a location she found on Twitter where a UFO was reportedly seen. Muttering to herself about the high probability of success for her UFO summoning ritual, she raises her arms to the sky and begins singing in harmony, hoping to attract the UFO. Meanwhile, Matsuri explains to Suzu how he received his upgraded ninja gear from Kogi Rio earlier that morning. Suzu apologizes for the previous gear being damaged because of her. Matsuri reassures her, saying it's no big deal since the new gear has been enhanced with enchantments. Shirogane, perched on the balcony edge, stares off into the distance. Matsuri mentions to Suzu that Shirogane has been acting odd lately. At that moment, Toba opens the door to the roof, calling for Matsuri and saying someone wants to speak with him. Two boys approach, wanting to exchange line IDs with Matsuri, thinking he is cute. Matsuri, flustered by the compliments and not knowing the boys, doesn't know how to react. The boys continue to praise Matsuri, calling him a total knockout. Sauga, standing nearby, steps in and scares the boys off. Sauga asks Matsuri if he interrupted anything, and Matsuri gratefully replies that Sauga saved him, mentioning that the boys didn't realize he was a guy. Sauga reflects on how he knows Matsuri's true gender, realizing that appearance alone can be deceptive. He mentally snaps himself back to focus. Matsuri then tells Sauga about an icon appearing at Kogi and briefly explains what an Ian is. Matsuri asks if there's a specific cause behind the icons. Sauga responds that they don't have enough data yet, but they know that icons wander without a fixed form and can mutate into something resembling human traits. Meanwhile, Toba, Lucy, and Suzu are eavesdropping on Matsuri and Sauga. Toba asks Suzu if she thinks Sauga would be a good match for Matsuri. Suzu, shocked by the question, immediately says no. Toba then turns to Lucy for her opinion, but Lucy, uninterested, is busy checking Twitter for UFO sightings. Shirogane stands on a tree branch, observing a small UFO drifting through the forest. He mutters to himself that the UFO has no connection to him. Just then, Matsuri and Suzu arrive and ask what he's doing there, but Shirogane dismisses them, saying it's none of their business. Matsuri quickly transforms into her ninja gear and attempts to capture the small flying object with a net. Elsewhere, Lucy is performing her quirky ritual to attract UFOs. She ponders the existence of intelligent life beyond Earth and hopes that if aliens ever visit, they will recognize her good intentions and reveal themselves to her. She continues her chant with hope and enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Matsuri is seen chasing an Ayakashi with great determination. Suzu asks Shirogane about the nature of the Ayakashi, and Shirogane identifies it as a Sachichiban, a Tsukimagami of a Buddhist symbol. Suzu worries about their proximity to the road and hopes the Ayakashi doesn't distract a driver, leading to an accident. As Suzu munches on dango, Shirogane becomes hungry and pleads with her for some, but she refuses. Annoyed, Shirogane transforms into Matsuri's original male form. Suzu is taken aback and blushes, having not seen Matsuri's true form in a long time. Shirogane moves closer, whispering in Suzu's ear, begging for the sweet dango. Finally, Suzu relents and tosses the dango into the air. Shirogane flies off to catch it, eating it happily in front of Lucy. Lucy is stunned to see the boy who saved her in her dreams standing before her. She wonders if Matsuri might be an alien. Introducing herself, she's surprised when he responds with, "If it isn't Lucy." Puzzled by how he knows her name, Lucy speculates that perhaps the alien recognizes her good intentions and wants to befriend her. When she asks for his name, Shirogane improvises and introduces himself as Shiran Matsu. Lucy starts questioning him about his background and age, and Shiran Matsu answers all her questions smoothly. Meanwhile, Matsuri finally captures the elusive Ayakashi and discusses their next steps with Suzu. Both are shocked to see a male version of Matsuri sitting with Lucy. Matsuri is bewildered to realize it's Shirogane. Acting strangely, Shirogane seems intoxicated, and Suzu notes that it might be due to the catnip she mixed into the dango earlier. In his confused state, Shirogane accidentally confesses his affection for Lucy, though Lucy doesn't realize he's looking at her as if she were a piece of dango. Matsuri and Suzu are taken aback, and Suzu inadvertently pushes Matsuri onto the captured icon, which then escapes. Shirogane also flees, leaving Lucy confused about what just transpired. Back at school, Matsuri confronts Shirogane about why he transformed into his male form. Suzu is thrilled to see Matsuri's original form after so long. Matsuri wonders if Shirogane is after the God Sealing Scroll, and is soon surprised by Rio. Rio and Matsuri sit down for tea, and Rio asks how his new ninja gear feels. Matsuri replies that it fits perfectly but senses there's more on Rio's mind. Rio admits she's curious if Matsuri wants to return to being a boy. She speculates that perhaps the transformation doesn't bother him too much, but Matsuri confides that life has become more complicated since then. Rio then unveils a robot, announcing her plan to reverse the gender-bending curse. She also reveals her fascination with scents, calling it her obsession. Meanwhile, Suzu and Shirogane are seen heading to Matsuri's house, where they unexpectedly find Rio sniffing Matsuri's armpits. Much to their surprise, Rio openly expresses her passion for scents. She assures Matsuri that this is crucial for breaking the curse. Rio instructs her robot to gather the ingredients of the scent she detected, then burns them into an incense, hoping it would counteract Matsuri's curse. The incense only manages to reduce Matsuri's breast size, which is a bit of a letdown. Rio, seeing potential, tells Matsuri there's still room for improvement. Suddenly, Matsuri's chest expands to the size of cantaloupes, tearing his shirt apart and surprising everyone. Later, Matsuri and Suzu are walking by the river on their way to school. Matsuri notices Suzu glancing at his chest and asks why. Suzu replies that she's glad his chest is back to normal. Matsuri explains that his chest returned to its usual size when he woke up that morning, adding that he had trouble sleeping due to the sudden change and that his shoulders are still sore from the previous day. Suzu silently reflects on the difficulties Matsuri faces with these unpredictable transformations. Suzu silently wishes for Matsuri to revert completely to his original male form. She recalls Garaku's words that if she could master her Ayakashi medium abilities, she might be able to lift the curse that has transformed Matsuri. Determined, she quietly tells herself she can do it. Matsuri, catching part of her muttering, asks what she means, but Suzu dismisses it, saying it's nothing important. From a distance, someone observes Matsuri and Suzu. Later, a boy at school inquires with two girls about Suzu's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Matsuri is chatting with a couple of boys about his recent performance in a basketball game. The boys, clearly fans, suggest he could become an idol, but Matsuri laughs it off, insisting it's not going to happen. Toba, Suzu, and Lucy are impressed by Matsuri's growing popularity. Toba expects Sauga to step in and rescue Matsuri, while she and Suzu entertain thoughts of finding love themselves. A green-haired boy approaches Suzu and asks to speak with her, making Toba envious. She nudges Suzu to go talk to him. Suzu wonders how to politely decline but is taken aback when the boy whispers that an Ayakashi needs her help. Matsuri, noticing Suzu's absence, asks Toba where she went. Toba mentions she's with the handsome guy from earlier. Concerned, Matsuri tries to head over, but Toba and Lucy stop him, insisting he should let Suzu handle it. Matsuri worries that the boy might be more than he appears. The green-haired boy reveals an injured Ayakashi, explaining it might have been hurt after entering the forest. He mentions that normal people can't see Ayakashi. Suzu is unsure what to call him, but he introduces himself as Hinajiki Sausuke, explaining he was born with the ability to see Ayakashi. Hinajiki admits he was hesitant to approach Matsuri for help and decided to seek out Suzu after seeing her with Shirogane. Hinajiki confesses his lifelong fear of Ayakashi but felt compelled to help this one. Suzu, moved by his sincerity, picks up the injured Ayakashi and focuses on healing it. Using her powers, she successfully restores its life force, and the Ayakashi begins to move around joyfully. Heniki remarks that he's surprised an Ayakashi medium can heal other Ayakashi, then proceeds to devour the injured Ayakashi. Suzu is horrified by what he has done. Heniki, impressed by Suzu's Haku, teleports them both away, effectively kidnapping her. Matsuri and the others arrive at Suzu's last known location and find her phone on the ground. Shirogane informs Matsuri and Sauga that Heniki's appearance has become more human-like since they last fought, making him almost unrecognizable. Shirogane reveals that Suzu has been kidnapped and that Heniki has evolved into a higher form of Ayakashi called a Gino, a humanoid Ayakashi. Matsuri suits up and, along with the others, begins jumping across rooftops in search of Suzu. Shirogane recalls a past encounter with Heniki when he was more Ayakashi-like. In the flashback, Heniki is seen slaughtering Ayakashi and Shirogane is disgusted. Confronting Heniki, Shirogane insists that Ayakashi should not consume each other. Heniki, agreeing, states that he is closer to humans than Ayakashi. Despite managing to wound Heniki in their fight, Shirogane was also injured and had to retreat. He is amazed to see Heniki again after 400 years on Earth. Shirogane warns that if Heniki consumes Suzu's Haku, he will become nearly invincible. However, Matsuri is determined to rescue Suzu, regardless of the risks. They might be walking into a trap, but Matsuri emphasizes that saving Suzu is their top priority. The scene shifts to an abandoned hotel where Suzu wakes up to find Heniki looking out a window. He explains that the dilapidated building represents the broken dreams of people from the economic bubble era, adding that such places are comforting to him. Heniki reveals himself as a Gino and recounts how he started small but climbed his way up by hunting and devouring Ayakashi, eventually evolving. Heniki grabs Suzu, expressing his disdain for humans and his desire to feast on them. He tells her that no one will be able to rescue her since he has Leo, a protector Ayakashi evolved from an icon, guarding the abandoned hotel. Matsuri and the others are confronted by a swarm of icons. Heniki waits eagerly for one of them to deliver Matsuri's head, aiming to fill Suzu with fear and despair before consuming her Haku. Hearing this, Suzu flees. Matsuri tries to sense Heniki's energy, while Heniki enjoys the chase. Just as Heniki is about to catch her, Matsuri intercepts him with a punch, expressing his disgust and vowing to tear Heniki apart. Heniki numbs one of Matsuri's arms, leaving him momentarily stunned. Matsuri attempts to summon wind but fails. Sauga uses his skills to fend off some Ayakashi. Meanwhile, Shirogane races up the stairs, with Heniki and Matsuri still battling. Matsuri realizes that inflicting damage that Heniki can't easily recover from might cause him to lose his form. However, Heniki manages to bite off Matsuri's arm and leg, overpowering him. Heniki declares Matsuri dead, and Suzu, recalling their fond memories, breaks down in tears. As Heniki moves in to devour her, Shirogane swoops in and rescues her, returning to his true form due to the release of the God Sealing Scroll. Now back in his original form, Shirogane prepares to confront Heniki. Suzu clings to Shirogane like he's a steed, realizing that the seal has been lifted and her connection to Matsuri is gone. Heniki mocks them, stating that stealing prey is unkind, and he's eager to savor Suzu's Haku after seeing her friend's demise. He demands Shirogane return Suzu, but Shirogane recalls Heniki's dangerous ability, Gulfing Shadow. This power allows Heniki to summon a mouth that devours Haku in its vicinity, a direct threat since Ayakashi lack flesh and blood. Shirogane realizes that Heniki's scent and presence are almost impossible to detect. Opting for a ranged attack, Shirogane throws needles at Heniki, who boasts about needing a significant amount of Haku to counter his engulfing shadow. Shirogane then unleashes a fire breath attack, but Heniki's ability absorbs it without harm. Heniki mocks Shirogane, saying he thrives on Ayakashi arts. Shirogane knows only direct physical attacks might work, but he's hindered by having to protect Suzu. In desperation, Suzu suggests Shirogane eat her to survive, but he calls her foolish and reminds her of Matsuri's sacrifice. Seizing the moment, Heniki launches a hidden attack. Shirogane notices and throws Suzu to safety just in time. As Shirogane sends Suzu away, he thinks about his disdain for humans and how often he's been drawn close to them. Heniki then bites off a portion of Shirogane's face, leaving Suzu horrified. Heniki ridicules Shirogane, declaring he will finish him off. Suzu, in a desperate move, attacks with her paper cranes, forcing Heniki to retreat. Suzu remembers Garaku's advice about keeping unfolded origami for emergencies and realizes its value. Heniki is stunned that an Ayakashi medium can use Ayakashi arts, and his arm goes numb from the attack. Suzu rushes to Shirogane and tries to heal him, but he tells her to escape. Suzu refuses and insists on helping. Heniki destroys her origami and appears behind her, ready to devour. Suddenly, a whirlwind attack separates them, leaving Heniki confused. He thought he had eliminated Matsuri, but Matsuri is still alive. Matsuri, having saved Suzu again, stands ready for the final battle. Heniki yells, insisting he killed Matsuri, but Matsuri calmly responds, saying it's time to finish this. Suzu, overjoyed, embraces Matsuri, relieved to see him back to his male form. Shirogane explains that Matsuri survived because he had transformed into a female. The mark on Matsuri's stomach generates Haku, transforming him. When Heniki's engulfing shadow absorbed the female Haku, Matsuri's male Haku reasserted itself, bringing him back to life. Heniki finally realizes why Matsuri's Haku tasted so similar to Shirogane's. In a shocking move, Heniki partially devours Shirogane, weakening him but not killing him. Matsuri attacks Heniki, but his efforts are in vain. Heniki gloats about his increased power from absorbing Shirogane's Haku. Shirogane urges Suzu and Matsuri to escape, but Matsuri refuses, determined to defeat Heniki. Trusting Matsuri, Suzu grabs Shirogane and moves to a safer location. Heniki taunts Matsuri, eager to kill him to enhance Suzu's Haku. Matsuri devises a plan to counter Heniki's engulfing shadow ability with his wind attacks. As Heniki charges, Matsuri notes that Heniki's power relies on close combat to distract his foes. Heniki relentlessly attacks Matsuri, questioning how long he will evade him. Matsuri claims to have found Heniki's weakness, surprising Heniki. Matsuri recalls his training with his grandfather, focusing on mastering the wind. He calms himself, blending with the wind. Shirogane notices the air becoming still due to Matsuri's control. Heniki, laughing, launches a massive attack, but Matsuri counters and hits the real engulfing shadow with a powerful wind strike. Unable to maintain his form, Heniki dissolves and disappears. Suzu rushes to Matsuri, hugging him tightly and crying with relief. Sauga and Pansuk watch from a distance but decide to leave them alone. Shirogane explains that Matsuri's gender swap is temporary, and he will revert to a girl by sunset. Matsuri invites Suzu to a small waterfall. Suzu, expecting a romantic moment, finds Matsuri meditating under the waterfall instead. Matsuri contemplates his true feelings for Suzu, looking at her with deep emotion. Suzu calls out, promising to become a stronger Ayakashi medium and lift Matsuri's curse one day. Matsuri realizes that as Suzu's powers grow, she may drift away from him. He assures her that he will always protect her. As Suzu slips, she accidentally pulls off Matsuri's fundoshi, revealing his manhood. Just after catching a glimpse, Matsuri transforms back into a girl, and Suzu gets an unexpected peek at his fully nude female body. Suzu got a 2-in-1 deal. Later, Matsuri and Suzu walk home together. Matsuri asks if her parents are worried, but Suzu reassures him that she had texted them earlier to let them know she was with him. Blushing, Matsuri looks at Suzu in a new light, wondering if she was always this beautiful. Before they part ways, Shirogane stops Suzu, saying he needs to talk to her. He reveals that he has lost all his Ayakashi powers, making it difficult to fulfill his role as the king of the Ayakashi. Shirogane then reveals to Suzu that she must take on his role and become the king of the Ayakashi. Both Matsuri and Suzu are stunned by Shirogane's revelation. The scene shifts to school, where Toba asks Matsuri and Suzu where they were the previous day. Lucy jokingly suggests they might have been kidnapped by a secret syndicate. Suzu apologizes, and Matsuri covers for her with a fabricated story. Lucy mentions that their teacher, Suori-sensei, is mad because they skipped class. Just then, Suori-sensei appears, demanding that they see him in the staff room. Later, Matsuri and Suzu find themselves on the rooftop, discussing how Toba and Lucy seem to have completely forgotten about Heniki. Matsuri explains to Suzu that people who don't believe in Ayakashi often struggle to remember those who vanish. He adds that Ayakashi are peculiar and don't always make sense, but many are kind and harmless. Before he can finish his thought, Suzu gently places a finger on his lips, completing his sentence by saying it would be impossible for her to become the king of the Ayakashi. Suzu then asks if that's what he was going to say. Matsuri admits he is concerned for her. Suzu takes his hand and tells him she spent the night thinking it over and has decided to accept the responsibility. She notes that her Ayakashi medium abilities have been growing stronger since meeting Shirogane and believes that engaging more with Ayakashi will help her unlock even more power. She explains that she wants to try because she wants to turn him back into a guy. Matsuri, touched by her resolve, promises to support her, recognizing that it would be too dangerous for her to handle alone. Shirogane suddenly appears behind them and asks Suzu to come with him for a test to see if she is fit to be the king of the Ayakashi. Meanwhile, Rio is seen talking to her grandmother, the principal of the high school. Rio thanks her grandmother for the transfer, wanting to be closer to Matsuri. Her grandmother, who cannot see Ayakashi, offers her support as a normal person and wishes Rio luck, encouraging her to prove herself useful to Matsuri and her friends. Later, Suzu and Shirogane are speaking to an Ayakashi named Azu the Bean Counter, who is distraught over losing his Azuki beans. Shirogane explains that without his beans, Azu will disappear. Suzu becomes worried and focuses on finding the missing beans. Meanwhile, Matsuri calls Sauga into his classroom to discuss Suzu taking on the role of Ayakashi King. Sauga is skeptical about a human fulfilling that role and points out that they don't fully understand the extent of Suzu's powers. Matsuri admits to Sauga that he is in love with Suzu. Sauga advises him to be confident and work on himself to be the best partner for Suzu. Matsuri's self-esteem issues are evident, and Sauga encourages him to get a grip and start believing in himself. Back with Suzu, she finds one of the missing Azuki beans, making Azu very happy. Shirogane notices Suzu's improved ability to detect Ayakashi. Suddenly, Pansuk drops a box full of Azuki beans, causing chaos as Matsuri and Sauga dodge the falling beans. Suzu manages to detect more beans and reunites them with Azu, who is overjoyed. Suzu finds Matsuri in a compromising position with Sauga, leading to an embarrassing moment. Matsuri rushes to check on Suzu, only to find Rio sniffing her. Eventually, Azu recovers all his beans and is saved. A humorous scene follows, showing Suzu cleaning Shirogane in the bath while Matsuri discusses Suzu and Shirogane with his grandfather. Matsuri explains that Shirogane is staying with Suzu to teach her more about Ayakashi. He asks his grandfather if Suzu can truly become the king of the Ayakashi. His grandfather responds that it's up to Matsuri to support her. The next day, Suzu is welcomed by the local Ayakashi as their new king at a shrine. Matsuri is amazed at how well she fits in. However, Tanero objects, saying a human can never be king. He points out Shirogane's strength and how he solved Ayakashi problems, whereas Suzu is perceived as weak. Other Ayakashi start to agree with Tanero. Matsuri steps up to Tanero and reassures him that everything will be fine, as he will also support Suzu. Tanero, angered by Matsuri's words, casts a spell that traps Matsuri in a vivid daydream where he believes he is bathing with Suzu. Tanero, reflecting on how Matsuri rejected him and his friends before, sees this as his chance for revenge. Suzu tries to help Matsuri but finds herself unable to break the spell, as Tanero explains that only an Ayakashi can disrupt it. Suzu convinces Tanero that Matsuri's intentions are good and that he wants to be friends. Tanero, attempting to reverse the spell, inadvertently intensifies it due to his lack of skill. Suzu realizes she must act fast before Tanero's mistake leads to his own disappearance. Utilizing a shadow clone technique, Suzu creates a duplicate of herself and urges Matsuri to break free from the illusion. With her encouragement, Matsuri manages to snap out of the spell. Suzu then proposes making amends with Tanero, and they all agree to be friends. Shirogane is astonished at Suzu's mastery of the shadow clone technique. Garaku and Shirogane both anticipate a promising future for Suzu and Matsuri. That's it for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.